Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this: you've been waiting for his message, wondering if he's thinking about you. And then, finally, your phone lights up. It's him. Now, what you do next can determine everything. Many women make the same mistake when a guy reaches out after days of silence, after a breakup, or even after acting distant. And that mistake, reacting from emotion instead of power. When he finally reaches out after days, maybe even weeks of silence, your heart might skip a beat. You've been waiting for this, wondering if he still thinks about you, replaying past conversations in your mind. The temptation to grab your phone and respond instantly is strong. After all, you don't want to seem disinterested. But this is where many people make a crucial mistake: reacting too quickly, without considering what this moment really means. Taking a step back before responding isn't about playing hard to get, it's about self-respect and emotional control. When you respond instantly, you send a subconscious message that he can have access to you anytime, regardless of how he has treated you. It tells him that his timing dictates your actions, instead of the other way around. A woman who values herself doesn't drop everything the moment a man reappears in her life. She moves at her own pace, not his. By not responding immediately, you give yourself time to think. When emotions run high, impulsive decisions often follow. If he has been distant or inconsistent, your emotions might be a mix of excitement, relief, and frustration. Reacting in the heat of the moment can lead to saying things you might later regret, whether it's acting too eager or expressing resentment. Giving yourself space allows you to approach the situation with clarity rather than reacting purely from emotion. Slowing down also shifts the power dynamic in your favor. When a man knows that you'll always be available the second he reaches out, he may start to take your presence for granted. If he realizes that you aren't always at his beck and call, he is more likely to value your time and effort. This doesn't mean you need to ignore him for days just to prove a point. Rather, it means taking a moment to assess what you truly want before responding. It's also important to consider why he is reaching out. Is he genuinely interested in reconnecting and making an effort? Or is he just checking in to see if you're still available? Some men reach out not because they want something meaningful, but because they need an ego boost. If you respond immediately, you might be feeding into a cycle where he only contacts you when it's convenient for him, without making any real effort to maintain the connection. Taking your time to respond allows you to test his level of investment. If he's serious about you, he won't disappear the moment you don't reply within seconds. A man who genuinely cares will respect your time and will want to have a meaningful conversation, not just a brief interaction that serves his needs. On the other hand, if he loses interest just because you didn't respond right away, that tells you everything you need to know about his intentions. Not responding immediately also gives you the chance to reflect on how you actually feel about the situation. Are you excited about hearing from him? Or are you just relieved that he hasn't forgotten about you? There's a difference between wanting someone and wanting their attention. When you take a step back, you can ask yourself whether this person has truly added value to your life, or if you've been holding on to the idea of them more than the reality of the relationship. Another advantage of not responding instantly is that it prevents you from coming across as too available. While there's nothing wrong with showing interest, relationships thrive on a balance of effort from both sides. If you're always the one waiting by your phone and responding the second he reaches out, it might create an imbalance where he feels less pressure to invest in the relationship. When you take your time, it encourages him to put in more effort, rather than assuming you'll always be there. This also applies if you're dealing with a man who has a pattern of inconsistent behavior. If he disappears for days and then suddenly reappears, responding instantly might reward his inconsistency. Instead, by waiting and assessing the situation, you give yourself the opportunity to decide whether you even want to engage. If his behavior doesn't align with what you want in a partner, you're under no obligation to respond just because he reached out. It's also worth mentioning that taking your time to respond helps you set the tone for future interactions. If you establish a pattern where you always respond immediately, he will come to expect that from you. However, if you make it clear that you are someone who values her time and doesn't just drop everything for a message, you create a standard that he will have to rise to. A high-value woman isn't waiting by her phone, she's busy living her life. And when a man sees that, he's more likely to put in the effort to be a part of it. None of this means you have to play mind games or be deliberately distant. It's simply about recognizing your worth and ensuring that the people you allow into your life respect and value your presence. When you control the pace of your interactions, you're not just reacting to someone else's actions, you're making a conscious choice about who deserves your time and energy. That, more than anything, is the key to maintaining a relationship where you are valued, respected, and pursued in the way you deserve. When someone reaches out after a period of absence or inconsistent behavior, it's natural to feel a rush of emotions: relief, excitement, curiosity, and maybe even frustration. In that moment, many people fall into a common trap: over-explaining themselves or seeking validation. They want to understand why he disappeared, why he didn't respond sooner, or if he still cares. They might even start justifying their own feelings or actions, hoping to receive reassurance. But the truth is, over-explaining and seeking validation do more harm than good, often pushing the other person away and weakening your position in the conversation. One of the biggest mistakes people make when someone contacts them after being distant is feeling the need to immediately clarify their emotions. They might say things like, "I was wondering why you didn't text back," or "I wasn't sure if you were still interested in talking to me." While these statements may feel honest, they put you in a position of seeking approval. It subtly communicates that you've been waiting for an explanation, that their actions or lack of them have affected you deeply. Instead of appearing confident and self-assured, it can make you seem uncertain or insecure. Seeking validation often comes from a place of self-doubt. You might want to know whether he still likes you, whether he missed you, or whether you did something wrong to make him pull away. This need for reassurance can lead to unnecessary explanations like, "I was just busy. That's why I didn't text first," or "I didn't want to bother you, so I gave you space." These statements attempt to justify behavior that doesn't actually need justification. You don't owe an explanation for living your life, and you certainly don't need to prove that you're worthy of his attention. When you explain too much, it shifts the dynamic of the conversation in a way that can diminish your value. A confident person doesn't feel the need to over-communicate their thoughts and feelings just to be understood or validated. Instead, they let their presence speak for itself. If someone is truly interested and invested, they won't need a long-winded explanation to stay engaged. They will naturally want to be part of your life without needing constant reassurances about your feelings or intentions. Another downside of over-explaining is that it often leads to justifying behavior that shouldn't be justified. If someone has been inconsistent, distant, or unreliable, it's easy to fall into the trap of making excuses for them. You might say things like, "I know you've been really busy, so I understand why you didn't reach out," or "I figured you had a lot going on, so I didn't want to pressure you." While these statements might seem harmless, they actually do more damage than good. They give the other person an easy way out, allowing them to continue their behavior without taking accountability. Instead of holding them to a higher standard, you end up lowering your own. Confidence comes from knowing that you don't need validation from anyone else to feel secure in yourself. When you resist the urge to over-explain, you send a powerful message: you are comfortable with who you are, and you don't need anyone else's approval to feel whole. A person who truly values you will respect that. They will step up and make an effort because they recognize your self-worth, not because you convinced them to. The same principle applies to situations where you might feel hurt or disappointed. If someone reaches out after ghosting you or being inconsistent, you don't have to explain why that behavior hurt you in order to gain closure. Closure doesn't come from them understanding your feelings, it comes from you deciding that their behavior is not acceptable. Instead of saying, "I just want to understand why you stopped talking to me," you can choose to say nothing at all. If they care, they will explain themselves without being asked. If they don't, then you have your answer. When you stop over-explaining, you also create an air of mystery and intrigue. Instead of giving away all your thoughts and emotions up front, you allow the other person to wonder about you. They begin to see you as someone who is independent, self-sufficient, and not easily swayed by their actions. This makes them more likely to pursue you with intention, rather than treating you as an option. It's important to remember that the strongest connections don't require endless explanations or justifications. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, consistency, and effort, not on one person constantly trying to prove their worth. If you feel the need to explain yourself or seek validation every time someone contacts you, it may be a sign that the relationship isn't as balanced as it should be. The right person will make you feel secure without needing to constantly reassure you of their feelings. Instead of over-explaining or seeking validation, practice responding with confidence and simplicity. If he messages you after days of silence, you don't need to ask why he disappeared. You don't need to explain how you felt in his absence. You can simply acknowledge the message and continue living your life. If he asks what you've been up to, you can share a brief answer without over-explaining. If he's genuinely interested, he will keep the conversation going. If he's not, then he wasn't worth your time in the first place. At the end of the day, the way you handle these situations sets the tone for how you are treated. When you stop over-explaining and seeking validation, you reclaim your power. You show that you are someone who expects respect and consistency, not someone who is willing to justify bad behavior just to keep a connection alive. And that is the kind of energy that naturally attracts the right kind of people into your life. When someone contacts you after a period of silence or inconsistency, it can be tempting to immediately accept whatever attention they offer. You might feel relieved that they reached out, happy to hear from them again, or hopeful that this time things will be different. But one of the biggest mistakes you can make is accepting less than you deserve just because you want to keep the connection alive. When you lower your standards, you send the message that you are willing to tolerate inconsistent behavior, minimal effort, or a dynamic where your needs are not being met. This not only affects how they treat you, but also how you see yourself. The way someone communicates with you and treats you is a direct reflection of how much they value you. If someone is reaching out only when it's convenient for them, giving you just enough attention to keep you interested but not enough to make you feel truly valued, then they are showing you where you stand in their life. If you accept this kind of behavior, you are essentially agreeing to a situation where your feelings and time are not being respected. Instead of hoping that they will change, recognize that their actions speak louder than words. The right person will not make you question your worth, nor will they expect you to settle for breadcrumbs of affection. When you accept less than you deserve, you enter a cycle of waiting, hoping, and justifying. You may tell yourself that at least they are reaching out, that maybe they are just bad at texting, or that they have a lot going on in their life. But the truth is, people make time for what matters to them. If someone genuinely cares about you, they will show it through consistency, effort, and prioritization. If they are giving you the bare minimum, it is not because they are too busy or unsure, it is because they are not valuing you as much as they should. Lowering your standards to accommodate someone else's lack of effort can also lead to a loss of self-respect. When you ignore your own needs and desires just to maintain a connection, you teach yourself that your happiness is secondary. Over time, this can create feelings of frustration, resentment, and insecurity. You might find yourself constantly questioning where you stand, analyzing their every message, and feeling anxious about whether they will disappear again. This emotional turmoil is not the foundation of a healthy relationship, it is a sign that something is unbalanced. It's important to recognize that you are in control of the kind of treatment you accept. If someone reaches out but their actions don't align with what you need, you have the power to set boundaries. You do not have to entertain someone who only gives you attention when it suits them. You do not have to accept inconsistent behavior or minimal effort just because you like them. True confidence comes from knowing your worth and refusing to settle for anything less. One of the reasons people accept less than they deserve is the fear of losing the person, the fear of being alone, or the fear that no one else will come along. This fear can make you hold on to connections that do not truly fulfill you, convincing yourself that it's better to have something rather than nothing. But settling for less than you deserve does not bring happiness, it only prolongs disappointment. The right relationship will never require you to constantly fight for attention, justify bad behavior, or accept less than what makes you feel valued. When you choose to hold yourself to a higher standard, you send a clear message not only to others, but also to yourself that you respect your time, energy, and emotions. You show that you are not someone who can be strung along with occasional texts or half-hearted efforts. You demonstrate that you are someone who deserves consistency, respect, and real effort. And when you carry yourself with that mindset, you naturally attract people who will meet you at that level. This doesn't mean you have to be rude or dismissive when someone contacts you. It simply means that you should be mindful of whether their actions align with your expectations. If they are inconsistent, ask yourself if that is the kind of connection you want. If they only reach out when they need something, consider whether that dynamic is fair to you. If they make you feel unsure about where you stand, recognize that you deserve clarity and effort, not confusion. Sometimes choosing not to accept less than you deserve means walking away. It means recognizing that even though you may want things to work out, you cannot force someone to treat you better. It means understanding that letting go of the wrong connection makes space for the right one. And while it may feel difficult in the moment, prioritizing your self-worth will always lead you to better relationships and experiences. When you decide that you will no longer settle for less, you create a shift in the way people interact with you. Those who are not willing to meet your standards will naturally fade away, while those who truly value you will step up. You will no longer waste time on people who leave you feeling uncertain or unappreciated. Instead, you will invest your energy in relationships that make you feel respected, cherished, and emotionally secure. Ultimately, the way you allow others to treat you is a reflection of how you see yourself. If you believe that you deserve love, respect, and consistency, You will not tolerate anything less. You will not make excuses for people who do not prioritize you. You will not settle for relationships that leave you questioning your worth. Instead, you will carry yourself with confidence, knowing that the right person will never require you to accept anything less than what makes you feel valued and respected.